What if I told you the biggest thing holding you back isn't your paycheck? It isn't the economy. It isn't your age. It isn't your past. And it isn't even your education. I know those things matter. They can create real challenges. But after more than 3 decades of helping people recognize opportunities, build careers, start businesses, and steward their finances, I've noticed something. The people who move forward in life don't always have the most resources. They simply learn to see what others overlook. I've met people with very little who built incredible lives. I've also met people with every advantage who never stepped into their potential. So what made the difference? It wasn't money. It was mindset. It was stewardship. It was faith. Today I want to challenge something many of us have building for years. Because if you leave this conversation with only one thought, I hope it's this. The biggest thing keeping most people stuck isn't money. It's the person they've settled for becoming. There was a season in my life when I found myself asking God the same questions many of us ask. Lord, when will things change? When will the right opportunity come? When will I finally feel like I'm moving forward? Maybe you prayed prayers like this. Maybe you worked hard. You stayed faithful. You've done your best. Yet it feels like everyone else is moving ahead while you're standing still. I understand that feeling. But over time, something changed in me. Not because my circumstances changed overnight. My perspective changed. I realized I had been asking God to change my situation while He was trying to change me. That realization was both humbling and freeing. Because if God could transform me, then my future wasn't limited by my current circumstances. It was shaped by who I was becoming. That's a lesson I still carry with me today. Our culture tells us that success comes from getting more. More money, more followers, more recognition, more opportunities, more influence. There's nothing wrong with those things by themselves. The problem is believing they are a starting point. They're not. They're often the result of something much deeper. Just think about a tree. When you see healthy fruit, you don't focus on the first fruit. You look at the roots. Healthy roots produce healthy fruit. The same is true in our lives. If we want different results, we have to examine what is happening beneath the surface. Our beliefs, our character, our habits, our faith. That's where transformation begins. One thing I love about Scripture is that God rarely works the way the world expects. Before Joseph led a nation, he learned faithfulness in a prison. Before David wore a crown, he cared for sheep in the field. Before Moses led Israel, he spent decades in the wilderness. Do you notice the pattern? God prepares people before He promotes them. That truth changes everything. Because if preparation comes before promotion, then your current season isn't wasted. It's developing something inside you. Patience, character, wisdom, faith, leadership, stewardship. Those qualities cannot be purchased. They are developed. And they become the foundation for everything that follows. So let me ask you this one question. What if you've been measuring your life by the wrong standard? Instead of asking, when will I have more? What if you ask, who am I becoming? That's a very different question. One focuses on possessions. The other focuses on purpose. One depends on circumstances. The other depends on transformation. And transformation is available to every one of us. Let's talk honestly about money. Money matters. We need to provide for our families, to give generously, to build businesses, to create opportunities, to bless others. Money itself isn't the enemy, but money has a way of revealing what's already in our hearts. If someone is generous before wealth, they'll often become more generous with wealth. If someone is wise before increase, they'll often manage increase wisely. But if someone lacks discipline, integrity, or stewardship, more money rarely solves these problems. It often magnifies them. That's why I believe one of the greatest prayers we can pray isn't, Lord, give me more. It's, Lord, prepare me for more. Because preparation protects the blessing. One word completely transformed the way I think about success: stewardship. Stewardship simply means managing well what God has entrusted to you. Your time, your talents, your relationships, your career, your finances, your influence, everything. When we begin seeing ourselves as stewards instead of owners, something changes. We stop asking, why don't I have more? And we start asking, how can I be faithful with what I've already been given? That's the question that opens new doors. Not because God is withholding opportunities, but because faithful stewardship positions us to recognize them. So if money isn't the biggest reason people stay stuck, what is? After years of working with professionals, entrepreneurs, government employees, women building after setbacks, and people from all walks of life, I've noticed the same 3 patterns over and over again. Your story may be different, your background may be different, your circumstances may be different, but these 3 patterns show up again and again. Now let's start with the first one. Pattern 1. People wait instead of steward. Have you ever caught yourself saying, I'll start when I have more money. I'll start when the kids are older. I'll start when I have more confidence. I'll start when life settles down. I'll start when someone finally gives me a chance. But if we're honest, we've all said something like that. The problem is that someday has a way of becoming never. The enemy doesn't always need to stop you. Sometimes all he has to do is convince you to wait for the perfect conditions, to wait until you feel completely ready, to wait until every question has an answer. But that's not how faith works. Faith has always required movement. Think about Peter stepping out of the boat. Think about Noah building the ark. Think about Abraham leaving everything familiar. None of them had every detail. They simply trusted God enough to take the one next step. And here's something I've learned. God doesn't expect you to know the entire journey. He simply asks you to be faithful with the next step. That one decision can change everything. One application, one phone call, one conversation, one chapter written, one class completed, one act of obedience. Progress is built one faithful step at a time. God rarely reveals the 10th step until we've taken the first one. So let's pause for a moment and let that sink in. How many blessings are waiting on the other side of one courageous decision? Pattern number 2, focus on what you have. I love the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. Imagine standing in that crowd, thousands of hungry people, very little food. From a human perspective, the problem looked impossible. But Jesus asked a different question. What do we have? He didn't begin with what was missing. He began with what was available. Now that's the lesson we can carry into every area of our lives. Instead of saying, I don't have enough, ask, what has God already placed in my hands? Maybe it's your experience. Maybe it's your career. Maybe it's your ability to encourage others. Maybe it's your network. Maybe it's your testimony. Maybe it's the wisdom you've gained through difficult seasons. Every one of those things has value. One of the greatest tragedies isn't a lack of opportunity. It's failing to recognize the opportunities we've already been given. Now, I've seen people build successful businesses from skills they almost overlooked. I've seen careers transform because someone was willing to say yes to one opportunity. I've seen women discover confidence they never realized they possessed. And that's not because everything changed overnight, but because they finally recognized what God had already entrusted to them. Your breakthrough may already be sitting inside the gifts you've been overlooking. Pattern number 3, becoming different. People want better relationships, better finances, better health, greater influence, more peace. But lasting change always begins inside us. Romans chapter 12 reminds us to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Transformation begins with renewing the way we think. Because the way we think shapes the choices we make. And our choices shape the direction of our lives. If I believe I'll never succeed, I'll hesitate to pursue opportunities. If I believe I'm not qualified, I'll talk myself out of taking the next step. If I believe my past defines my future, I'll never fully embrace the purpose God has for me. Now that's why renewing our mind is so important. Faith changes how we think. And changed thinking leads to changed living. You cannot live a transformed life with an untransformed mindset. Everything we've talked about today comes back to one word: stewardship. When we become faithful stewards, our perspective changes. We stop chasing success. We begin pursuing faithfulness. And success often follows faithful stewardship. So now we know why many people stay stuck. They wait instead of steward. They focus on what they lack instead of what they already have. And they want different results without becoming different people. The question becomes, how do we change? How do we begin moving forward this week? There is hope. Your story isn't over. You don't have to change everything today. You only need to take your next faithful step. Step number 1, take inventory. Ask yourself, what has God already entrusted to me? Write down your gifts, your education, your experience, your relationships, your testimony, your passions, your skills. Don't rush this exercise. Sometimes we're so focused on what we wish we had that we forgot to appreciate what we've already been given. Gratitude helps you recognize what comparison causes you to overlook. Step number 2, choose just one opportunity. Don't try to change your entire life this week. Take one action. Momentum begins with movement. You don't need a perfect plan to take your next faithful step. Step number 3, pray a different prayer. Instead of asking, Lord, when will you give me more? Pray, Lord, help me become the person you can trust with more. Ask God for wisdom. Ask Him to help you recognize opportunities. Ask Him to show you where He's already at work. God is always working, even when we can't see the full picture. If today's message encouraged you, would you do me a favor? Share it with someone who needs this reminder. Maybe what they really need is a new perspective. And if you're new to this community, I'd love for you to subscribe. Every week we'll have conversations about faith, confidence, stewardship, leadership, financial wisdom, entrepreneurship, and recognizing the opportunities God placed before us. My heart is to help you build a life that's rooted in faith, guided by wisdom, and filled with purpose. Next week, we'll continue this journey with a message called God's Blueprint versus the World's Blueprint. Until then, remember this. God is far more interested in who you're becoming than what you're accumulating. When you become the person He's calling you to be, you'll begin to recognize the opportunities He's already placed in front of you. Thank you for spending this time with me. God bless you. I'll see you next week.